Hey everybody, this is Kevin from Fort Orange Woodworking, and today's video has absolutely nothing to do with woodworking, but it is approaching mid-February here in upstate New York, and our temperatures in the area have dropped as low as -25 during our most recent cold snap, and I thought that this would be a good time to talk about vehicle emergency preparedness. Now, I've got 3 vehicles for the adults in my family, and I thought it was important that everyone have a kit in case of emergencies. And it's really important that every vehicle has its own kit, because if you're missing something from one car that you want to use in another, it's not going to do you any good when that emergency does arise. Now, one thing to mention about these kits is you can tailor these however you want, but this isn't an all-purpose survival kit necessarily. This is really just for vehicle emergencies where there's a good chance that someone's going to get to you shortly. So if you're out in the wilderness somewhere or in another remote location, you might need to add some extra stuff or take away, depending on what your particular geographical circumstances might be. So for my area of the country, this I think is going to handle almost all emergency situations without a whole lot of technical expertise on how to use them. So let's get started. The first thing that I have in my kit is a storage container to keep everything there. This is about 15 bucks at Home Depot or Lowe's or some other place, but really what's important is you want this storage container to be airtight and mostly watertight so that it doesn't get your items separated or wet, and also because if you do happen to get into an emergency, there's a chance that it might be a crash, and you don't want things like your heavy metal 4-way lug wrench going flying through your car and hitting you in the back of the head. So keeping all of your items in one place and secure is really, really important. So storage container. Number 2, speaking of the 4-way lug wrench, universal 4-way lug wrench with different ends. In addition to this, I also include this 2-foot section of PVC. This was a trick that somebody showed me a long time ago that has definitely helped me since. And what the PVC does is it will fit over any one of these ends. And if you have to use it, the PVC will provide extra torque for stiff lug nuts when they just don't want to come off. So this has come in handy more than once for me. It's only about $5 or $6. Go ahead and throw it in your kit. It might save you some undue stress in the future. Maybe even get your tire back on and keep you out of that jam. Lug wrench cost me about 16 bucks on Amazon. You can get these pretty much anywhere. Definitely something you want to have in your kit. Next thing is, speaking of tires, is our tire repair kit. First thing I have is Fix a Flat. It's got instructions on the back. Most people are familiar with how it works. It'll keep your tire running for a little while as long as you use it properly and you're using it only to get help. It is not a permanent solution. It's just going to get you where you need to go to get out of an emergency. Right along those lines, I also have a tire repair kit. This is for those times when you run over something small or metal or get a puncture in your tire by the tread. This kit is really easy to use. It has instructions with it. It basically puts a plug in your tire so that you can put more air in it and drive away from it. I've used this myself. It's really user-friendly, and it can get you back and running for those times when you get holes in your car. You don't have to call for help. Also in this kit, I have my handy Leatherman. Rather than putting like a whole toolkit in my car, I just keep this right here in the storage box for things like anytime you need a screwdriver, right? So anytime you need a screwdriver, flathead, Phillips, whatever. It also obviously has a pocket knife and pliers. You don't have to go crazy expensive with these. Even the cheap ones are fairly decent. And you can get these for around 25 bucks. Now, you can also spend a lot more. You can spend up to a couple $100 on a Leatherman. But honestly, I don't think it's really necessary to spend that much for the number of times that you may or may not use it. So the screwdrivers are handy, the pliers are handy. No more than 25 bucks is all you really need to spend on that. We also have a couple other things here. This is a blanket for emergency purposes. You could use one of those space age foil blankets, which take up very little room, but frankly, I have plenty of room in this little box to store my heavy wool blanket, and I think it is far more versatile than those space-saving foil guys, or even like an old quilt that you might have laying around the house. It's okay. It'll give you an extra layer for warmth, but a good wool blanket will give you some good weight, and they're also waterproof. So you can pick these up at like an Army Navy surplus store or online. They cost about 20-30 bucks. If you can find them used, even better. But I keep that right in here. It also kind of keeps things packed down and gives it a layer of protection against the other stuff. We also have a section of rope here. I recommend about 50 feet or so. Make sure that you're buying good, strong rope. You don't want to cheap out on this or go too thin, because the main reason that you're going to need this is if somebody needs to pull your car. So if somebody with a truck drives along and they don't have their own rope, you can supply this, and it might get you out of a snowbank or a muddy ditch or something like that, as long as the rope is strong enough to attach. Now keep in mind, you can always double up, which will make it about twice as strong, but that's why we want to have at least 50 feet so that you can double up for those times when you really need to give a good pull. So we also have here a hat and a pair of good gloves. These should cost you nothing, because if you're like me, I have lots of these laying around the house. But if you don't, just go out and buy an inexpensive pair, but a good pair with some good lining in it, in case you are in cold weather climates and you need to go walking away from your vehicle. This could possibly save you from frostbite or cold temperatures in that kind of a situation. Also along those lines, I recommend keeping your hat and gloves inside of 2 plastic bags. Now the reason, I only have one right here, but the reason why I keep these in plastic bags is a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously it's going to keep the hat and gloves dry. But also, with 2 plastic bags, if you ever have to walk away from your vehicle and it's a snowy situation, you could always put the 2 plastic bags over your shoes to keep them dry if you have to walk. You might look a little silly, but it'll keep your shoes, your footwear from getting wet if you have to walk away and it's cold out. You'll thank me later. Another quick, cheap thing that I threw in here is this little inexpensive camp shovel. This is honestly largely a piece of junk. I got it off of, I think, eBay. You can get it off of Amazon. It's made of cheap metal, but keep in mind, this isn't exactly designed to do heavy duty work, but it can get you out of a jam. It doubles up as a shovel, as well as like this little pickaxe, which I highly doubt I would ever use. But the shovel is important because even though it's very small, it could help you dig through snow and ice. If your car just happens to get stuck in a bad spot, you can dig around it so that you can then go to your blanket for traction. Okay, so that's another purpose of the blanket, is to help you get some traction under a tire. You can stuff it under there, and maybe that'll be just enough to get you moving again. So a little camp shovel like this, it's got a couple of neat little features. It collapses, it stores into like next to nothing as far as space goes. It even has this little compass on the bottom, which I don't know if I would ever trust, but it's there. It's better than nothing. And like I said, this is cheap, but for what you get out of it, it's totally worth keeping it in your very, very little space. So a little camp shovel cost me about $5 or $6 on Amazon or eBay. All right, so what else do we have? Okay, the big one. This one over here is my Kinverch, I think it's called. I don't know, honestly. I'm not familiar with the company, but it did come highly rated on Amazon. This is a more than dual purpose. This is a multi-purpose charge pack as well as air compressor. So the big two functions that this thing serves are replacing jumper cables. You always have a jump pack, because what good is it going to do to have cables if you're the only vehicle around, right? So if your car dies and you're the only one around, this can save you. I've used a different, much cheaper version of a battery pack before for my own vehicles, and they've worked every time flawlessly. And they were just like these little things that came from Amazon. This is much better, came much more highly rated. It's super convenient with the charge cables right on it, and also, like I said, it's also an air compressor. So it's got these little cabinet doors here. You open up, your air compressor hose comes right out. You select it to the air compressor function, and it'll provide you with enough air to get you going again. It's not, I wouldn't use this in place of the air stations at gas stations or your own air compressor at home. It's really not for that purpose. It'll drain your battery, but in an emergency, this will absolutely get enough air in your tires to use with your fix-a-flat or your repair kit to get you going again. And then it stores back up into your little compartment. It also comes with some attachments for household items like balls for that you use in the backyard to inflate those pools. Things like that. You could also use it for that. It has attachments. But really, the reason why I got this is because it has those two functions. It replaces jump cables, it replaces the need for another car, and it has the air compressor. So the 2-in-1. Combined, those two tools will cost you somewhere around 70 bucks if you go cheap. This, on the other hand, cost me 90, highly rated. It has 900 amps, so it's more than enough to start any car and almost all trucks. And you could also use it for charging your battery, for your cell phone in an emergency. It has a light on it that you can use to see what you're doing. Really handy thing to have around in an emergency. Probably the most important thing in this whole kit. I have another one here too that I got for my truck. This one is made by Potec. This one has 1,000 amps. I got this one first, and I got it a little beefier because I have my pickup truck. I just wanted a little bit more juice just in case. These two I picked up for my smaller vehicles. This is not a comparison between the two brands. I don't know a whole lot about them, but I'm going to guess that these were probably made in the same factory, because if you can look at these, I'll show a close-up in the video with a picture, but these are designed exactly the same. This one's a little bigger. This one is they're different brands, but the gauges are the same, the layout is the same, the buttons, everything is completely the same on these. So I'm guessing they came from the same factory. Haven't had a chance to use the cables yet, but like I said, these work really well because I've used cheaper versions of them before and without problem. So there you have it, your battery packs. Try those out. Both come highly recommended. Now, I also want to talk about some optional stuff. I didn't include these in my kit. I don't really feel that I have the need for them, but you may. So some people I know like to put kitty litter or a bag of sand in their emergency kits. I totally get it. I've used it before, especially the kitty litter. It gives you good traction if you need to get a tire unstuck, especially if used in conjunction with the wool blanket or something else as a surface. That's something you could add to your emergency kit. Some people also like to add food. This is an MRE. This has been sitting in my car for a couple years, no lie. You could have a use for it. I'm not in the middle of the wilderness, though. I don't think I'm ever going to be in a situation where I would absolutely need to have food in my car. But if I were going somewhere that it's a little more remote and someone might not get to me for a while, not a terrible thing to have laying around there. Get you some calories to walk to where you're going. You might want to have a winch kit if you are in like a more heavy duty pickup truck or something like that, and the rope might just not be enough. You might want to have some chain or some winch kit in your vehicle. So that's something that you could think about. And lastly, there's other things that you could think of, and I know that the list is just endless. You could go on forever with possibilities, right? But like things like a serpentine belt or a fan belt that might cause your car to not run anymore, those things are great if you know how to use them. A lot of people, though, don't know how to make their own car repairs. So if you throw something in there like a serpentine belt, just make sure that you know how to use it. All in all, this kit cost me somewhere between $200 and $250. Now, I had some of these items laying around, so I just threw them into the kit. I had the wool blanket, I have a hat and gloves. You might have a 4-way lug wrench sitting around, or some rope or a shovel. That's great. If you can cut costs on this, that's awesome. But this should not cost you more than $250 if you're being reasonable about the quality of the stuff that you're buying. By far, the most expensive part of this kit was the battery charger. That ran me somewhere around $90 to $100, but in my opinion, totally worth it for peace of mind, because my wife drives cars when I'm not around, and I want to have that peace of mind, as I'm sure you do too. So if you have not done so already, go ahead, get a few items together, use my list, modify my list, get some stuff together so that if an emergency ever takes place, you will be prepared. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to hear some comments on what everyone thinks. I know that you have your own opinions on what should or maybe shouldn't be in your kit. So I'd love to hear it. Go ahead and reach out to me in the comments. Please remember to like and subscribe. And the next time I see you, it's probably going to be in the shop. So drive safe. Take care, everyone. Have a good one. Bye-bye.